Hey everybody, I'm doing a little bit of an ad hoc video today. I'm sitting here, it's the end of the day, having a little drink at the end of the day, which I usually do, just relaxing. And I had something happen that I thought I'd share, and it's kind of weird, but also it's kind of, for me, a little bit exciting at the same time. But to start it off on something very different but related is today I spent a fair bit of my day at the passport office. And you may wonder, why am I bringing up the passport office? Well, over the holidays, I was told by my wife that I needed to go to the passport office because I had to take care of some things for my kids' passports. She'd already been down there. We're both on the application. They needed some signatures from me, some things from me. Should have been done right the first time, but I needed to go down there. And I was told about this over the holidays, and honestly, it went in one ear and right out the other. I kind of knew I needed to do it, but we had stuff going on during the holidays. I ended up going back to work, doing stuff with the kids, doing stuff with the hobby, just doing lots of things, and it completely slipped my mind. I wasn't even really thinking about it. Well, a few days ago, I woke up at 4:30 in the morning, right after I had a dream that basically I got a bunch of passports that had been rejected for my kids because of various reasons. And they were very specific. It had like nothing to do with anything really, but it was just a dream. I have weird dreams. But I woke up and it was so vivid that I said to my wife, I was like, I gotta go to the passport. I completely forgot. I gotta get the passports done. And so 4 days later, I'm doing the passports at the passport office. And so for me, I just sort of remarked how the subconscious can work. And it was almost kind of like ESP or something. It was just very weird. Well, it's fast forward, and I'm looking at DACA, which I oftentimes will go there just to look at news on a regular basis. It's very 40K centric, but they have other stuff too, for historicals and other things. And I always see the night models thread come up. I kept my eye vaguely on the Batman miniatures game over the last bit. I've seen it before it was released, I've seen it, battle reports for people, local people playing it, people talking about it where I watch their channels. I've kept an eye on it for a number of reasons. One of them is I think they make really good miniatures. A second one is I actually started back into miniatures through HeroClix, which isn't painting miniatures, but it's just a miniature-based game that many of you may know of. I left HeroClix for a variety of reasons a long time ago, but I was quite intrigued at a superhero game being made that seemed to be very high, a lot of high quality miniatures, and then also it seemed to be really taking off very well. Fast forward, and then over time it seemed like it's really being supported well. I'm seeing release after release. Lots of cool things. So I guess to just go into the next part, I need to just take a little bit of a sidetrack here, and I need to actually just talk about one of the things from my youth that I've mentioned this on the channel before a little bit, but I was a huge comic book fan and Marvel fan as a kid, and in particular, a big thing that resonated with me was the 1967 Spider-Man cartoon. The 1967 Spider-Man cartoon, many people may laugh about it looking back today, but whether it be the music, the psychedelic artwork, or just a really cool cartoon of Spider-Man in motion at the time, for somebody that was just a Spider-Man fanatic as a kid, it's something that I always look back at, and it just has an appeal, a very nostalgic appeal for me. And at the time, it was almost a magical experience to see it on TV as a little kid. it was 1967 that it came out. I was born in 1973, but even when I was 4 or 5 years old, it was still being played on the TV, and I really was a fanatic about it. Like, I had to see it anytime it was on. It might have been the first time I even tried to figure out how to use a TV guide or ask someone to read a TV guide for me to see when it might be on. The villains in it were great. There are many of them that I remember to this day. Like, I don't have a copy of it. I should, after all I'm saying. But I remember Mysterio, and I remember the Rhino. I remember vividly the Scorpion on it, and of course the Green Goblin. My youth as a little kid was very much about Spider-Man as a hero, and a superhero. As a teenager, I became an Iron Man fanatic of the old Iron Man comics. I pride myself in having been an Iron Man fan before Robert Downey Jr. And yeah, I mean, like, basically those are the two for me. And I kind of grew into Iron Man later, but as a really little kid, Spider-Man was what it was all about. Now, the Batman miniatures game and Knight models, I've kept an eye on them in the past as well, because I knew that they made large-scale Marvel miniatures, but they didn't have a Marvel game like they have for their Batman miniatures game. I was quite jealous in a lot of ways of the Batman miniatures game, because I have a healthy respect for the character Batman, the films and the comics, and he's a lot older than a lot of the heroes, in sort of as a genre than what I like. I enjoyed many of the movies, particularly the more recent ones, but it was never my thing, in all fairness, and I don't want, like, in the comments this to be like a Marvel versus DC thing, because I just don't want to go there. But just accept the fact that I am, just in the same way some people are Star Trek fans as some Star Wars, I'm a Marvel fan. And I could never really get myself to get into the game, just no matter how good it was as a miniatures game. But I kept watching, because it just fascinated me that it was doing so well. It fascinated me that it was being expanded on. And then also I knew that there was these miniatures that they'd painted for Marvel, and I knew there may be a chance that something might come out. Well, today, one, I mentioned the Daka Daka thread. There's a Daka Daka thread called the Batman Miniatures Game, but that there is no thread for anything else. It's just, these threads are created by people, and it's not that they have a responsibility to create a thread for every game that's out there. It's done by the initiation primarily of the forum posters. But usually it covers everything. Today, I randomly just clicked on the Knight Models forum to just look at their stuff a bit. And as I was clicking on the forum, and I was on, I think, like a page like this, I said to myself, they should really do a Spider-Man miniatures game modeled after the Batman game. Because it's, it'd be in New York City, despite the fact that Spider-Man's one tough dude in the comics, has superhuman strength. A lot of people don't think about that, but he does. It was a more manageable scale of a setting as compared to, let's say, the Avengers, where you're dealing with, like, worlds and galaxies and things. And the level of power of overall of everything is just notched up a bit more. The old school Spider-Man, was taking on still robbers and, fighting villains that, although were powerful, it was just scaled down just a little bit, but had lots of character and lots of really cool scenarios, I think, that could be developed. And so I go in there and I sort of look on the website, and it says the Batman Miniatures Game, and then it says Knight Model Legends, and I knew there was, I went to the 70mm series, actually, and I just clicked on Marvel, and I've seen these before. I was looking at all the ones that they had here, And there were some new ones that have come out since I'd looked last. I think it was, I don't, unless I missed it, this saber-tooth Wolverine wasn't there the last time I'd looked. It'd been a while. But, you know, and I'm like, oh, these are really good. Maybe I'll pick one of these up. I've always thought about getting the Doom, because Dr. Doom down here in his chair, where is he? I'm looking through the camera here, but yeah, there he is. Dr. Doom, one of my all-time favorite villains, if not my favorite villain. Not even particularly a Spider-Man, Iron Man villain per se, you know, granted Fantastic Four or whatever, but he's shown up in a lot of stuff. Always liked this sort of scientific magical combination of Dr. Doom. But I was looking around and I came across this. And it says the Spider-Man Miniatures game. Now, I'm not trying to prove that I have ESP or whatever, and there's logical reasons for this, but I was just sort of thrown because I just had been saying to myself that they should make not only a Marvel Miniatures game, but a Spider-Man Miniatures game. That's the one that they should focus on. Now, yeah, I mean, despite Wolverine being in the top left-hand corner for many years after Spider-Man as a poster child for Marvel, Spider-Man was the poster child for many years and still is in some ways. And so, yeah, like, you know, people can say that there's a lot of reasons for this. I really think the universe, the story of Spider-Man, could be excellent to try to gain some success as a miniatures game in the same way that the Batman game has been made. But I really had that sort of ESP moment, you know, when I saw that. I was like, how did I call that? So this isn't out yet. The rules aren't out, but they do have some things out. They have little spider robots. They have a Spider-Man on a chimney. They have a starter set with some guys that I've never seen before. They call them... Oh, I'm going to have to click on this, sorry. Even looking through the camera, I can't quite tell. They're Spiderlings are these guys. I've never seen these before. He's never had Spiderlings, I think, in the comic. But as I understand it, the game is about, you know, having a bit of a comic force. You know, I don't know a whole lot about the Batman miniatures game, but they always had a troupe, not just the hero. I quite like the miniature here. Definitely not, you know, modeling just after the old comic or the old Spider-Mans, but I like the Batman game. I hope they would do that, bring the retro stuff in and have versions. So my understanding is this is pre-order. It's potentially coming out for May. They also have Daredevil and the Punisher miniatures already made, which I think is very cool, and it could show that we may be seeing, here's the Punisher, all other kinds of heroes and villains that you could justify being in the Spider-Man story also showing up. So it's interesting because I don't really need another game to get into, although I'm also just interested in the miniatures. For me to get this, I guess I'm kind of thinking it needs to be a really good rule set, which means I probably need to look into the Batman game just to see how the mechanics are and whether there's something unique that I'm going to enjoy. For the most part, to some degree, it's going to, the miniatures are going to have to be good. I do like the Green Goblin miniature. I'm not sure that I'm crazy about some of the support cast that they have on the Goblin Cult, because they call this the Goblin Cult. I really like, I do like this miniature quite a bit. So some of this is actually a really good sign. I do like the choice here on this one. I'm not so sure. I was actually a bigger fan of the Hobgoblin in the comic than the Green Goblin. And they have what they looks to be the Hobgoblin, but they call it a Goblin Knight. And then they have these like little goblin things. So interesting, but I'm gonna have to really see how this pans out. But it's going to have a good rule set and good miniatures. And the thing that I'm deathly afraid of is the idea of getting terrain for this, because I don't think I can recycle anything. And so it'll really be interesting to see what might be available as far as terrain. I've never even really looked into that for the Batman game. I'm not really that keen on doing a whole new set of terrain. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it might be something, and I also am not really looking at trying to build a community like locally around this game. I likely would just solo play this, you know, paint the miniatures, just enjoy it, because I like Marvel, and I'd really be interested to see what else comes out. And then, you know, like a couple of personal friends got into it, and that would be fine, but I'd have to really think about the terrain thing if that was to be the case. There is a section on accessories for the Batman game. I'm just looking as an example what they may have. It looks like there are game markers, objective game markers, lampposts. I see like little pieces. What I don't see is buildings. Just curious. It could be something that I scratch build too. But yeah, I was really happy to see this. Like, I actually think a quality Marvel miniatures game might be one of the first times that's been made. Somebody else can chime in if there was a really good one that's come out in the past. I actually really liked the Marvel role-playing game when I was a kid. I think it was the Marvel Universe. I'm trying to remember, but it was quite cool. I enjoyed it. But yeah. Interested in everybody else's thoughts, but that was my sort of ESP Spidey sense moment that happened just following another personal moment where I had dreams about my passports not being accepted. Okay, talk to you guys later.